think I hear myself, at least.
Yep.
Hi guys, welcome to my Trinidad chocolate tasting. This is going to be fun. If you can hear me, can you just wave so I know we're good? Awesome. Hi, Roger.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Anna.
This is so fun. I have to keep my eye on the sidebar to make sure I admit people who are waiting, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome. A couple of you have been to my shop before, but I think most of the folks here haven't. So I'm going to pick up my laptop and give you a little tour. My name's Enna, and I started my chocolate factory, my chocolate production about 5 years ago. We have started in our home kitchen, and after about 2 years, I moved to a larger kitchen. We built out a commercial production space in the next town over, and then we outgrew that. So we spent the last 5 months building out this new factory space in our hometown of Exeter, New Hampshire. The room I'm in is the production room where we make chocolate from bean to bar. I'll give you, we can stand in one place and pivot so you can see everything. There's the winnower, oven for making pastries daily. Behind that bakery rack are my roasters. That's one of my tempering machines, another tempering machine behind me, and a cooling closet behind that. All my chocolate molds are there. Labeling tools, and this is all chocolate block that's ready to be tempered. We're building up our supply for the winter. Chocolate grinders. That's Cece. And Cece's got a squeak, so she's not running right now. We got to take the wheels out and do some maintenance today. And then the other little guy, my husband named that one R2. R2 is making, let me admit someone to the meeting here. There we go. R2 is making a caramelized white chocolate that we'll have ready in a couple more weeks. And then you can see the window behind those. That looks into my cafe, which is brand new. We just opened about 3 weeks ago. And we serve espresso, coffee, and of course all of the chocolate drinks you can imagine made with our own bean to bar chocolate. So let me put my computer down again. So I'm excited to share my chocolate with you. I think several of you probably received the sample in the box from Dallas Chocolate Festival. A few of you are local or customers of mine, and I've mailed you these bars. And if not, hopefully you'll get a chance to try it another time in the future. Feel free to, I've never moderated a Zoom meeting, but feel free to wave your hand or do the raise hand thing, and I'll try to keep an eye on the sidebar and make sure I can take any questions at the end. But thank you for joining me. This is really fun. I chose Trinidad to share because it is a really unique bean. I'm the only person in the world working with these particular beans grown by Herbert Pasqual in Trinidad. And it means a lot to be able to share his hard work and the hard work of the people who have collaborated with him in Trinidad to produce these absolutely gorgeous beans. A little bit more about that. A lot of people ask me if I travel to buy my beans. I wish I could. That would be glamorous for such a small bean to bar maker. Most of us who are producing at the scale I'm producing at, and I've gone through about 2 tons of beans in the last year. I still can't afford to travel to source my beans. If I do, and when I do travel, it's really just for my own learning experience. It's essentially educational agritourism, if you will. Someday I'll visit all these places that I source my beans from. I have my Trinidad, Tanzania. These are all bucket list places to visit, right? Honduras, Haiti. This is another Honduras bar, same beans with almonds. I'll visit all these places someday. But in the meantime, I am relying on brokers and others who source the beans and handle the import the export process from the country of origin, the import to the US, storage in warehouses, and they'll help me facilitate the freight transfer to my production facility. These are all logistics that would be really challenging for me to manage if I were doing the whole import process myself. And these same brokers also are able to provide a lot of support and resources to the farmers and communities at the production end that even if I did have the luxury of traveling, I don't have the expertise and the resources to offer that kind of support. So it's exciting to me that the beans that I'm working with are a result of really beautiful collaborations and personal relationships along a very short supply chain. When people ask if it's direct trade, I like to say, well, I didn't buy it, but it is everything and more that you would hope from what we call direct trade. The farmers are fairly compensated. The people who grew the beans and who fermented them, packaged them, delivered them to the US, stored them in the US, and then sold them to me. That's about how many transactions have happened at most between you, the customer, and the farmer, the origin, the producer of those beans. And each of those relationships can be traced and documented, and they all have really interesting stories. So in the case of the Trinidad beans, these are a result of a project that Meridian Cacao, one of the brokers I work with, engaged with a large number of farmers and farming communities in Trinidad. And let me make sure I don't have to admit anyone. Okay, thanks guys, keeping me on track here. What Meridian did was they provided financial and training support to different farming communities at several different locations in Trinidad to help farmers develop the quality of their cacao, because the fine flavor market, which is what I'm working in, and most of the chocolate producers and other vendors involved in the Dallas Festival, and we're involved in the fine flavor market, which is separate from the commodity market, and our beans have a higher dollar value. So farmers who can achieve that fine flavor quality and then also achieve the connections through the supply chain to get them to me or another bean to bar chocolate maker, they can be compensated much more sustainably, if you will, than a farmer working with the commodity market, where the prices are driven more by the end of the supply chain or the manufacturing main characters in that transactional world. So Meridian sent financial resources, agronomists to communities in Trinidad and set up several micro fermenteries around the country to help farmers develop fine flavor and quality. And each fermentery that has maybe 5 farmers working with it. Some might have more, some might have a few less. And a few years ago, when they first started this and started releasing the beans in the US, I got a hold of 4 or 5 samples. Just by samples, I mean 5 or 10 pound bags from Meridian, so that I could roast them, make chocolate all the way through, and see what I thought of them. And they were all very interesting. In general, the beans I sampled were all very fruity, on the fruity end of the flavor spectrum, but all really different from each other. And when I got to this sample from Herbert Pasqual, I was blown away. Just the smell of the beans initially right out of the bag is overwhelmingly beautiful. Not all cocoa beans, when they arrive to me in the raw, unroasted form, they don't all smell beautiful. Some of them smell dusty. Some don't really portray what the end result of the chocolate is going to taste like. And some do to a certain extent, especially the fruity ones. The ones with a really fruity flavor often have a really fruity smell to begin with. This one has a beautiful wine and fruit and caramelly aroma right from the start. So sometimes I have to roast a bean, make chocolate to see if I'm interested in working with it. But I knew immediately that I wanted to work with this bean. And so I made my tiny batch of a few bars, whatever I could make from the 5 or 10 pound sample. And then a few months later, I reached out to Meridian and asked, hey, what does Herbert Pasqual's next harvest look like? How is that going? And can I get any? And they, wrote back, and Gino from Meridian, and they said, well, funny you should ask, because of the samples of the beans produced at this project where Herbert Pasqual is participating in the fermentation project, his beans are the only ones that actually reached the quality that they need to import to the U.S. and sell to the fine flavor market. They had a really challenging hi everybody, got a couple new folks. They had a really challenging weather season during the fermentation and the final bean drying process. So Herbert Pasqual's were actually the only ones that they felt were the quality they were looking for. And then it was only about 350 or 400 pounds. So I said, I sat on that because that was it's a lot of money for me, but I pulled the trigger and bought them all. So I became the only chocolate maker working with Mr. Pasqual's beautiful beans. That was almost 2 years ago now. His production is so low that he's only exporting once a year. Some farmers will export twice a year because of the volume, but his newest harvest just arrived this spring in Oregon, and Meridian has it set aside for me. This time it's 600 pounds. So I'm gonna buy it all again. Sorry, Ben and anyone else who wants to work with Mr. Pasqual's beans, they're all mine. So you'll just have to taste the samples and let me know what you think. I'm really excited for the next batch because I have reserved some of my original Herbert Pasqual harvest, and the new harvest is on a freight truck arriving here soon, and I'm planning to have both batches available so that we can sell the two harvest years side by side, at least through the first part of the winter, and then I'll run out of my original Herbert Pasqual beans. So that's in a nutshell the story of how I obtained these beans. They're absolutely beautiful to work with. Ben, you joined late, but I want you to know these beans smell magnificent before they're roasted. I'm just telling everyone they don't all smell magnificent before roasting. Some of them even during and after roasting, you don't really get a sense of the flavor until they're in chocolate. But in this particular case, it's just glorious all the way through. So this is the bar. And if you have the sample, I hope you'll take it out of the bag now. Some people just pop it right in their mouth and go to town. Absolutely fine. To give it the sniff test is the right way, aside from looking at it, the right way to start a little tasting. I smell delicate fruit. Well, I smell sweet fruit, but it's a delicate volume of smell. And I'm gonna go ahead and pop it in my mouth because I'm not very patient. Give it a bite or two, not a lot of bites. Push it to the roof of your mouth with your tongue. And observe the first flavors that are hitting you. I'm getting two things up front. One is yogurt, and another is, and this happens, this deepens as the chocolate ages. This is a young batch, pomegranate molasses. And that molasses flavor is something that's consistent with these beans all the way through from aroma to finished product. I'm happy you guys are joining me in the morning because this bar has a really lovely long lasting finish. So I hope you can wait a few minutes before your next tasting because the finish is part of what's so interesting and exciting to me about this chocolate, and it's part of why I chose this one to share here. In the middle of the taste now, I'm getting like a sprinkling, tickling of sugar, also some wine, red wine, a heavy red wine, not at the back of my throat, but on the roof of my palate, the center of my tongue, like a rich wine. And as it's dissipating, I get more of that dairy quality. There's no dairy in this chocolate, it's just cacao and sugar, but I do get more of that dairy quality. The yogurt punchiness is subsiding and it's more milky and creamy. And in the air, if you can breathe the flavor through your mouth and through your nose, the air has a little bit of spice on it. And after we wrap up, I'll take some questions, but after we wrap up, it's that spice and that lasting buttery quality that I hope you'll savor for a few minutes after this before you move on to the next chocolate. Some chocolates, especially some of the fruity ones, at this point, we're left with an astringent quality, a drying quality in our mouth. And this one, for me, maybe for you it does, but for me it doesn't. And it really subsides into a very gentle, creamy quality. It's not cloying like cheese or butter, but it's just a very smooth, luscious quality that lasts. And that spice air is something that will continue for a good long time. That's really the final thing that I love about this particular chocolate. So in a nutshell, that's my little mini Trinidad chocolate tasting. I work with several different origins. I'm not, because of our factory build out, our move to a new cafe location, because I'm a tiny business, I'm really set on my current origin producers. I'm not really exploring other origins at the moment, even though I'm always interested in bringing on new ones, but I'm really happy with my current range, and also really busy getting ready for the holidays and our current inclusion in single origin bars. But I'm happy to take questions or not.
I just want to say it was a love. Oh, it is so nice. A little bite. I'm saving some for later.
Oh, good.
It's so good.
Hi. I'm still waiting for my bars. My box should be delivered any minute, which I'm really excited about. But I just have a question about that, and I've experienced this with what gives a bar that has no dairy that dairy quality? Do you know what I mean? That creaminess, like what?
Ooh, I am not exactly the person to answer that question. We need a microbiologist, someone who specializes in fermentation. I can tell you that it is a result of all the enzymatic stuff that happens in these simultaneous and sequential kinds of fermentation that happen over that week of the beans fermenting. I'm not equipped to tell you more than that.
Okay, fair enough.
There's a scientific answer to that. Yeah.
It is amazing, though.
It is a beautiful, the other bar that has a very solid milk flavor and afternote that I make is my Honduras bar, the Wampuserpi, La Musquitia. And several makers work with those beans. That's a really fun one to compare the bars produced by different bean to bar makers. And I personally love the milk note that I get in my bar from that. Some makers go for other flavor profiles, but it's certainly worth exploring to see if you find milk or dairy in those bars.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Well, if you received the chocolate box for Dallas Chocolate Festival, just know that I'm extremely jealous. I wish I were tasting it along with you, or if you have yet to receive it, I know you'll enjoy it. It's going to be worth the wait. Thank you for joining my tasting. If you're ever up in New Hampshire, I hope you'll visit us. We have a cafe. We do mail order. You can check out our website, ennachocolate.com, or follow me on social media, which is the best place to learn if we're doing any new inclusion or origin bars or anything else. Always happy to chat with people, and it's lovely to connect with people over chocolate, even though it's all virtual right now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.